So here's what we've been waiting for. What's up in Minnesota? So, okay. So this is the updates. So all these cases are cases I've shown you before, and they weren't closed at the time. They've now been completed. So I'm not going to spend as much time on these because you've seen them before, but I do want to let you know how they completed. And actually, I started doing something different last month. I used to save all the valet classifications until the new cases come up, but I find the valet classifications maybe even helpful with the historical case, with the updates. Oh, sure enough, now I can't find where to put those. Here they are. Here they are. They're right down here with all my paperwork. Okay, so I'm going to do the valet classifications with the updates as well, because I think a lot of times it's like, oh, I don't remember what that is. It'd be nice to know what we're talking about at this point. So let's look at case number 132295-U. So the -U, I don't know if MUFON has ever given a title to what those are. I call them qualifiers. They used to not have those on cases, but now cases are having -U, I think it's -U, -EQ, -A, and -O. Is that right? No, yeah, yeah. So this tells us a little bit about what's going on in the case. So you could have one qualifier, or you can have all four qualifiers. So U stands for UFO, A stands for abduction, it's E. E stands for entity, and EQ stands for experience or questionnaire. And I'll talk about that when we get to the new cases. So this one is just a 132295-U. So there's a UFO involved. Took place on July 8th, 2023 at 10:01 p.m. They saw a large glowing white round spherical appeared and disappeared 3 times. Joel Henry was investigating this at the time, and he's now completed it. So let's take a look and see what Joel found out. So man-made objects. So he checked this out for weather and other things. The best idea he can come up with is, due to the UFO being in a dim, non-moving object, is possibly a small aircraft traveling towards the witness with landing lights on at a distance, changing direction slightly to a few times, causing it to seem to disappear. So that is what Joel has determined. So thank you, Joel, for your work on that one. We certainly appreciate you. Case number 132526-U, again, the U for UFO, took place on July 15th of this year at 10:45 p.m. And glowing light with no sounds, the 2 glowing lights seem to be attached to the same flying object. Bill O was investigating this one. It was in progress at the time. Let's see what Bill determined on this one. Oh, remember this one? This is one that kind of flew in this very strange pattern. And this was actually submitted by the witness to give us an idea of where the path he believes, basically, this is the right location and the general path he believes that the object flew. So, see, and so there's the picture of the object. So we're an unknown UAV. So unknown UAV. So UAV stands for unidentified aerial vehicle. So what you would really think of as a UFO. Everyone thinks UFO is aliens. So that's not necessarily aliens, but is an unknown aerial vehicle. So the witness was driving on highway, observed 2 lights sitting about 1,000 feet up, not moving. The lights were part of an object about the size of his truck and making no noise. It then started moving, and the 2 lights started blinking. One had a red tinge to it. Since it made no noise, it was not a helicopter or plane. It moved too fast to be a balloon. It did move in the direction of a small airport nearby when it left. It also made some sharp turns, which meant it was not a balloon. The video he took of it was very good and shows that it exists, but you could not tell what it was. The object was a UFO, but from where it could not be determined. So thank you, Bill, for that. And Bill is here. Bill, do you want to comment in this case at all, or?
Bill, I thought was good, and but it made no noise. And I mean, he got out of his truck and listened for it. It made no noise.
Well,
he came around, but those blinking lights, you don't see that too often on a UFO of any type.
Right, yeah.
But there was the wrong type for it, airplane navigation lights.
Yep.
So kind of baffling.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for your work on that. Case number 132800-U took place on November 21st of 2022. Lake Superior, 1 light separated, 2 going different directions. Yeah, this is the one who was with husband and wife, no, co-workers, witnessed the same light on the other night, making a question mark movement before disappearing. So Steve Hero was working on this. Let's see what Steve found out. So unknown others. So witnesses. Let's talk about this. So the definition of an unknown other. So I want to make sure you pull up the definition so you can hear what that is. So we define an unknown other as the category should be used for unknown objects that don't appear to be any type of aerial vehicle. Examples would be orbs, odd moving lights near the ground, strange floating objects, a strange opening in the sky, etc. Witness seemed very credible, was eager to relay the report. He was curious as to what he saw, and that's why I was immediately checked a flight radar website for confirmation, which showed nothing in the airspace at that time. Since I don't have access to a database that goes back that far, I'll have to take his word for it and call this case unknown other. And Steve is here in the room too. Steve, did you want to comment on this one at all? Or?
Well, yeah, the fellow seemed very knowledgeable about flying objects, and that's why he was familiar with the flight information. So he was a truck driver, and he was coming down the hill in Duluth there, and saw this over to Lake Superior. And by the time here, like a half hour later, they was able to park the truck and go online and look up the flight data and see if there was anything in the area. And so he checked it out, and that's what he said. There was nothing around here. And so flight data that I looked up, almost go back a few weeks unless you pay the extra money for the information from several months ago.
Yep.
And he said, yeah, there was nothing there. And I looked at other websites like Newport to see if there was any sightings, and then move on to see if anything else on the thing. So
cool.
that's what I came up with.
Cool. Thank you, Steve. And actually, I told you I was going to do valet classification because I've been skipping it. But we'll try a valet classification on this next one. So, well, actually, we're going to get into the new cases. I'll do valet classifications anyway. So, this is the new case taking place from August 12th through, that should be September 8th. So not through September 9th. But anyway, so I mixed the date on that one. So, and we've only had 4 new cases submitted, no ERT cases. I mentioned ERT before, so I'll take a minute to talk about ERT. So an ERT case is a case where they may have seen a UFO, they may not have seen a UFO. The person believes they have experienced or encountered a non-human entity, and they may not be reporting a sighting, but they're looking for resources, and the resources they may be looking for are maybe psychiatrists or psychologists or doctors or things. So ERT is Experienced Resource Team. So it's a team of MUFON members that offer or can provide resources for people who believe they've had an encounter with a non-human entity, but not necessarily a UFO sighting. And because they're a little bit different cases, we have a higher level of anonymity with them. So generally when there's an ERT case, I really can't give you any information about it, except maybe that there was a case and maybe like the date or something like that, but I can't really talk about it at all, give you any of the details. But all the other cases in our database I can talk about. And we had 4 cases this month. None of them were ERT cases, so I can show you all of them. I think we got a couple of videos, so some pictures too. So the submission range, I got the submission range right, August 12th through yesterday, the 8th. The date range of the sightings it's all pretty current. So August 23rd of this year through September 9/2 of this year. So we had 1 RIDRC case, and so RIDRC, that stands for Rapid Investigation and Disposition of Repetitive Cases. So just tell you a little bit of how we define that. So do I have that right here too? I thought I did. So yes, so there's a number of different things. So SpaceX, everyone's seen those SpaceX satellites. We're going to show you some SpaceX stuff today too. That's something we know about. We don't spend a lot of time investigating because we know what that is. Kind of pencil whip that through. The International Space Station is going to be something too. We've seen it a lot. We know what that is. Someone who's a serial hoaxer, serial reporter. Doesn't happen a lot in Minnesota, but I've talked to people out further west, like California and like in Colorado, tend to have serial reporters or serial hoaxers. If we know that and can identify them, we may just rapidly put them through the system. Obvious lens flares, reflections, or other artifacts. Those are things that are happening with the camera. So we can, because I think people who attend this meeting pretty regularly, you're getting pretty good at picking off lens flares. I've noticed that you now know what you see that you go, oh, that's a lens flare. So, and actually there's some reflections in one of the videos today too, which is not a lens flare. You'll see the reflection, and hopefully you'll see the object that he's referring to as well. So, and inappropriate submissions. So sometimes we get inappropriate submissions. So those would all be rapid close cases. We got 1 of those this month, and I think it is a SpaceX one. So we'll take a look at that. And so the shapes we're going to see this month, so each case is a different shape. We're going to see 1 sphere, 1 circle, 1 triangle, 1 oval. Valet classification. So when MUFON started, MUFON's roots go all the way back to Project Blue Book, and J. Allen Hynek was the civilian consultant to Project Blue Book, and his mentee was Jacques Vallée. So when they're gathering all this data as a scientist, and you gather all this kind of data, you want to start categorizing things in different ways. So they were categorizing the data, and they called them Vallée classifications. So there's 4 different categories of Vallée classifications. There's the ANs, which stands for anomaly. There's FBs, which stand for flybys. There's CEs, which stands for close encounters, and there's MAs, which stand for maneuvers. And I'm taking it for granted everybody's heard of the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Have you ever heard of that? That's a Vallée classification. So if you've heard of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you already know a Vallée classification. So all those categories, anomalies, flybys, maneuvers, and close encounters, they have a first kind, a second kind, a third kind, a fourth kind, and a fifth kind. And real briefly too, if you're kind of into ufology or ufology, there are other organizations and other persons that have really latched onto the CE5, and their definition of CE5 is different from ours. And some people even go as far as like CE7 or CE8, which is, I guess that's fine if that's what they want to do. But MUFON or Jacques Vallée and J. Allen Hynek came up with the Vallée classifications. So that's what we use. And we have a standard 4 different groups and then up to 5 different levels of that. So we're going to see 2 CE1s. So it's only 2 close encounters of the first kind. So we define a close encounter of the first kind as class of objects seen on the ground or a short distance from the observer. So they're seeing something very close up, either flyby or on the ground. The other ones is 2 FB1, so 2 flybys of the first kind, 2 flybys of the first kind. So we define a flyby of the first kind as a sighting of a UFO flying by in the sky. It's the category most frequently reported, and today it's 50% of the cases. So let's get into those cases and see what we got. Case number 133808-U, so user qualifier, took place on September 2nd of this year at 9:13 p.m. A circle was seen, Vallée classification FB1, so just flyby one in Caledonia, Minnesota, which is in Houston County. And honestly, I couldn't tell you where Caledonia or Houston is, but if you know, good for you. Here's the short description. And all the cases today, I think I put in the full short, well, always the full short description. I think I've able to fit the full detail description too. Looks like Starlink, but doesn't add up. So it observed multiple lights in a line, looks very similar to Starlink satellites, but observers felt they were lower than a plane. Planes don't fly overhead frequently. Once the objects were overhead, there's a yard light in the way. When observers passed the yard light and looked up for approximately 5 seconds, the objects overhead were no longer visible, but we expected them to still be visible. Would like to confirm if Starlink satellites would be expected to be visible at this location at this indicated time. Seems strange that they would be seen in this remote area of Minnesota and make the witnesses feel they are so localized. The objects did appear to be in a singular trajectory upward. So Bill McNeff worked on this one. He's already completed it. So we're not going to show you this again next month because Bill's done with this. We got, I think, 3 pictures and 1 video on this. So we're going to have Joe in a minute. We'll have Joe pull up the video, but not yet. Let me show the pictures first. So the first picture is this one here. So again, if you've seen this, how many here have seen Starlink going overhead? Anybody? So a fair amount. So yeah, okay. So if you've seen Starlink, this is very typical of them as they start to separate. And again, we've got another picture. Again, that's very, very classic kind of Starlink launch. They're starting to separate. Yes.
It's from Jer.
Okay, Jer's saying.
He says, Caledonia is in the southeastern portion of Minnesota.
So down the Pipestone area.
Got relatives there, so.
Cool. So Jer says Caledonia is in the southeastern portion of Minnesota. So nice. Thank you, Jer. All right, so I'm glad to hear Jer made it online. He wasn't sure he'd be able to make it online, so that's very cool that he did. And our third photograph, again, a very typical Starlink type formation that we see. So the next is a video. So we're gonna try, it's gonna be a little bit of a trick. So Joe's gonna do some shifting so we can show you the video and the video to everybody out there too. So here's the other one. Nothing, it's very fast. So IFO man-made objects are another RIDRC Starlink satellites. So people have seen Starlink created by SpaceX to provide low-cost internet access to remote locations. Deployed launch 60 at a time. So that's 60 go up at a time. SpaceX plans eventually to have as many as 12,000 satellites in orbit. First 60 satellites are launched in May of 2019, followed by a second launch in November 2019, third in January 2020 to 4th March of 2020. Launches are planned about 2 months, and I can't read all this. So do the brightness of individual satellites. In response to the January 2020, SpaceX added a coding the satellites designed to reduce its brightness. A Starlink train appears as a linear string of light. So you saw the pictures of that linear string. That's indicative of a Starlink launch. So spectacular display, several minutes to transit the sky, or alternately could appear as spatially. Can you get rid of that so I can read this stuff or no? Okay, that works. So after several minutes, due to the huge numbers of Starlink reports already identified, even greater numbers anticipated, Starlink has been approved for inclusion in the RIDRC investigative format. So Bill McNeff did that. And so we talk about Starlink a lot, and we see a lot of these cases. So this was a live view or live computer generated view of what was happening at Starlink when I took this sometime last night. So these are all the Starlink satellites that are up there. So that's what, and if you see like this here, this streak right here, and this streak down here, these are launches. These are all going out. So these are being distributed, all creating this network here. And it's interesting too, because the polar caps don't have much, but there's that polar line. There's a lot below that, but there's a little bit, and I'm not even sure, these might all be moving to their final destination. Oh, here's another string too, so these are probably being launched too, so these are all moving around. So this is why we're getting so many Starlink or SpaceX stuff, because there's that many of them up there. So this is what we're seeing as far as, and this is not what the witness submitted. I submitted this because I thought it'd be interesting. So I think I told you last month I'd show you some Starlink stuff if I could, or SpaceX stuff. So this is what that looks like. So yeah, as you can see, there are SpaceX Starlink satellites everywhere trying to improve cell phone communication. So case number 133648-U took place on 8/31/2023 at 11:36 a.m. A sphere was seen, close encounter of the first kind in Rochester. Small semi-transparent orb, silver gray, moving estimated 90 to 130 miles per hour. Small gray silver orb moving north along Broadway, Rochester, Minnesota, between 90 and 130 miles per hour, less than a 500-foot altitude. Heading north, it was witnessed for about 5 seconds until it faded out. Did not appear in any way to be moving with the wind. The only thing I questioned is my possible underestimation of the speed. It was about high-rise building height. So it's been assigned to Linda Polkich-Malenka, so she will be working. And Linda's one of our newer field investigators. She's just doing a bang-up job. Really like the stuff that she's doing. So when Linda completes this case, we'll revisit it again, and we'll tell you what Linda came up with. I don't think there's any photos or anything of this one. So no. Case number 133626-U, 8/30/2023, 5:29 a.m. A triangle was seen. Close encounter of the first kind in Chanhassen. UFO seen hovering above Arboretum Boulevard, Chanhassen, before zooming off. I was driving on the highway when I saw a very bright golden light that was clearly not an airplane or a helicopter. I took out my phone to take a picture, but it zoomed away, and I thought I didn't capture the photo. Once I looked at the camera roll, I was shocked. I could send the photo, but there's a triangle UFO with what seems to potentially be an interdimensional being object right below it, shaped like a rainbow, with a triangle in the middle. There's also a tail of bright glowing light with a violet ray aura surrounding it, the tail. There's also another glowing white trail to the right of the picture with a golden yellow ray aura surrounding it. This is not my first experience, but the only one I've gotten on camera. I did experience a very profound experience that I can only conclude was abduction. I will also place a report of that event as well after I review the video footage that my parents took while I was in a state of complete shock. I need to confirm the date, and the video would tell me that. So that's been assigned to me. That may get assigned to someone else, because when cases first come in, they automatically get assigned to the state director, and then we assign them to field events investigators. So I may investigate this one, I may not. She talks about a photograph. She didn't submit the photograph, so hopefully we can get the photograph, but there's no photograph because she did not submit it. So there's nothing to see here, folks, nothing to see. Move along, move along, move along. Case number 133472-U took place on 8/23/2023 at 10:04 p.m. Oval was seen, a flyby of the first kind in Virginia, so way up north. And remember how I said I'd do the KQDS radio show up in Duluth? I did it about a week ago or so, and we did a Q&A. So people were calling in with questions and answers. And one of the questions was, hey, do you know anything about that report in Virginia, or that sighting in Virginia? At the time, I didn't know anything about it. So I'm not sure this is the same sighting, but it's interesting. They asked me about the Virginia sighting, and now we got a Virginia report. So witnessed a large orange ball-type object go straight across the sky in an upward strange direction, then vanish. Saw a UFO was a big orange ball with no tail but far away, but didn't move really fast. I'm posting a video. It's hard to see filming through my window. Went outside after and asked two people, they were sitting outside smoking, and asked them if they saw it too. So Steve Hero is working on this one. It's in progress. And what do we got on this one? So we've got
what in the hell is that? The hell was that? It was a glowing orange ball going across the damn sky, and it disappeared now.
But Steve is here in person. Steve, do you have any comment on this case so far, or no?
That's good. It's hard to see what's on video, very hard to see what's on there. The fellow, if I remember right, I think he was in the military, so he's familiar with whatever flies in the air, whatever he knows about in the air anyhow. So that's all I can tell you right now.
Cool. So thank you very much. And once this is completed, we'll revisit this one again.
And he said there was no plane or anything that there was seen before.
No plane or anything he's seen before. So all right. So, and that's what's up in Minnesota. So that's it for this month. And we're